Odi Odi, I am Wanya Illis, the Senior Technical Officer with the Caribbean Community Secretariat, the offices based in Barbados. I am responsible for coordinating the implementation of the CARICOM Trade and Competitiveness Project, an important intervention executed by the Secretariat to further enhance the implementation of the single market. Now that the single market has been implemented and there is evidence presented of the use of the single market regimes, the community needs to ensure that there is better access to the rights under the regimes. Our community nationals have been moving under the skills regimes. They have been providing services as temporary service providers. They have established their businesses in the region, and they have been able to move their capital and goods across borders. This access has been made possible through the implementation of the programs for the removal of restrictions. This program has seen the removal of 144 restrictions and has been momentous in ensuring that national treatment was granted to CARICOM nationals. A status update on the implementation of the 5 regimes reveals the following. If we're looking at the movement of goods, we know that there has been significant achievement, except for the movement of goods of agriculture produce and those goods that are impacted by standards and technical regulations. With respect to the free movement of services, access has been provided through the programs for removal of restrictions. The regime, however, remains incomplete as service providers who are moving on a temporary basis still face some challenges in member states as the institutional arrangements are not yet implemented by the member states. For the movement of capital, the movement is incomplete as 2 member states maintain exchange controls in place. Under the right of establishment, there has been general access. Again, this has been achieved under the programs for the removal of restrictions, which was implemented in the period 2002 to 2005. Issues remain as there is a lack of harmonization of companies' laws, and in some member states, CARICOM companies are still considered external companies. Regarding the movement of skilled nationals, all member states have legislated the 5 first categories, which allows for those categories of persons to work in a member state without a work permit. The 5 newer categories, however, compliance varies across the membership. The 10 categories are university graduates or equivalent qualifications, artists, musicians, media workers, sport persons, teachers, nurses, holders of associate degrees and equivalent qualifications, artisans who have received a CVQ, domestics with a CVQ or equivalent qualifications. Regarding the facilitation of travel, member states have advised that measures have been implemented through the departments of immigration. Reports have been received on inconsistent practices regarding the 6 months automatic entry into member states. In 2015, 9 years after the implementation of the CARICOM single market, reports received and studies and appraisals conducted reveals that much more needs to be done to ensure that practices and procedures are indeed harmonized and standardized. For an exercise like this, where member states have to ensure access to each other's markets through liberalization, effectively removal of restrictions, legal and otherwise, the administrative framework and infrastructure of the single market becomes important. Beyond the need of amending laws, the need for restructuring and streamlining of administrative practices and procedures have also been called on to ensure that governments can provide services that are more efficient and effective. Changing and managing the expectations of our stakeholders in this process, therefore, becomes an important activity to do as well. As such, there is continued need to educate our citizens and ensure that we increase ownership into a process which is built for their benefit. The community responded to this call by providing targeted support to the member states in the area of administrative and legislative support, institutional strengthening, and the strengthening of information flows and channels of information through a project called the CARICOM Trade and Competitiveness Project, which is doing a number of things. The project provides assistance to member states for the implementation of treaty obligations and other community decisions. It also contributes to solving problems related to business facilitation by addressing some of the efficiency and access-related constraints faced when conducting business cross-border. The project also provides support for the transformation of systems, procedures, and practices through harmonization and standardization of best practices, and also support in the area of strengthening of capabilities of CARICOM nationals to enter the services and labor markets. The project also develops a data management system for online processes of certain procedures. And finally, the project communicates that dedicated efforts are ongoing in making the CSMA more accessible and more user-friendly. This is a clear testament to ongoing efforts by the community to make the single market more accessible and business-friendly. It is also in keeping with the mandate from our heads of governments. At their 35th regular meeting, which was held in July of 2014, they adopted the strategic plan for the community, which amongst other things called for the acceleration of the implementation and the use of the CARICOM single market and economy. The CTCP project has taken its mandate seriously and has ensured that practices and procedures are not only further made more efficient and effective, but are also harmonized and standardized across the membership. Administrative reform in our single market needs to focus on ensuring that best practices are implemented in all of the participating member states, as such making it easier for CARICOM nationals to access their rights in one particular member state. All of these practices are carefully documented in a manual that details the administrative practices and procedures that CARICOM nationals have to go through to access their rights under the single market. This manual should also serve as a working guide for public officials who have to administer these rights and have to ensure that these could be accessible to CARICOM nationals. All of the participating member states have instituted the process to issue a skilled certificate. However, this is currently done manually. The project has proposed to move this into an electronic process. By doing so, the process achieves the following: improved application procedures across the board, efficiency in the processing and approval of a skills and services certificate, increased overall user-friendliness of the system, harmonized and standardized application across the participating member states, and lastly, improved capability to capture and collect data. A site has been developed and is available for training purposes. Ongoing legislative reform is also a very important component of the CARICOM Trade and Competitiveness project to ensure that member states continue to be compliant with the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and with decisions taken by our organs. A comprehensive review of member states' laws has taken place, and the consultant contracted to undertake this exercise has proposed over 120 drafts to remedy the inconsistencies in existing laws. Work has also been executed under the project in the area of technical and vocational qualifications. The focus was to ensure that member states had the capabilities in place to issue the CVQs, the Caribbean Vocational Qualifications, at the national level. Finally, the project also ensured that existing channels of information flows could be strengthened. As such, training exercises and capacity building interventions were completed in member states. Teachers, spokespersons, media workers, public officials were trained, and the expectation is that these channels are now strengthened to be able to share information on the CSME. Stay engaged, stay involved, and tambung.